Julian, welcome to the Commerce Talks podcast. Today we are talking about robotics with ABB.com. So tell me about yourself and ABB, please.
Yeah, hi, Alexander. Thanks for having me, first of all. Great opportunity to join your podcast. So yeah, let's start on a high level, right? I mean, ABB is a conglomerate of many different types of companies. And one of those businesses ABB is working on is robotics. And over there, we are segmenting robotics in a customer-centric way. And the business line, the division I'm working in is called Consumer Segments and Service Robotics. Complicated name, so let me try to explain it very briefly for you. Consumer segments, I think that's very clear, right? So you and I, everyone, what we consume on a daily basis can be food, beverages, but also consumer product like apparel, fashion need to be produced. And then that's one pillar we are serving with robotics, with automated solutions. And then the service robotics parts, probably a bit more exciting and futuristic, is really what we call robots providing services in, for example, restaurants, retail stores. So really at the point of sales with customer interaction. So these are the two main pillars. And then, of course, what is super important in between is the logistics part, right? So how you connect these two worlds, where you produce the consumer goods and ultimately where you sell them. And that's the middle pillar, which we call logistics, but which, of course, also spans across a lot of different disciplines and activities inside logistics. And over there, I'm working as a portfolio manager. So I am managing products and applications we are developing inside of ABB Robotics for these customers.
Where do we see robotic solutions in our daily life, maybe even in retailing environments where no robotic solutions were around like 10 years ago?
Yeah, that's a very challenging question. I think, first of all, let's start where we don't see it. So we have seen robotics starting with really standardized production processes of cars, right, of welding robots. And this is now more and more expanding into the world of logistics, consumer packaged goods. And this, of course, this takes place in production facilities that we as consumers never see, right? So when you buy a product, you don't know how this product has made its way into the packaging, on the pallet, into the carton boxes. So this is something that is probably taking place behind the curtain, so customers don't see it that much. But to answer your question, where consumers today can see robots in the retail space, right? This is the space where consumers typically go. This is something where we see, for example, in Asian markets, a bit more progress than in the European and North American. And over there, we for example, see automated kiosks where you can, as a customer, for example, order something online, scan your QR code that you get with the order, and then a robot is picking up this piece you have bought and directly feeding it out. And this, of course, enables 24 hours sales activities in these automated kiosks. And what we also see, coming back to the service robots, is that there are growing numbers of these mobile robots that can be used, for example, in hospitals or in restaurants that make or provide very easy services. So delivering food or some typical components that you need in a hospital context or in a restaurant, right? So, for example, bringing away dirty dishes or bringing fresh prepared meals to the table. So this is something where consumers can already see robotics today, but it's not yet widely scaled. And as said, typically starting in countries that are a bit further advanced, as we see it, for example, in South Korea or China.
You came up with a good point. You were describing like an Asian vending machine, an automated kiosk. So for me, that sounds like a big machine. So what is the official definition between like machine and robot? And I think you must be well informed about that, because what you've described is kind of a huge vending machine, I would say. So what makes it a robot?
Yeah, that's a very good point. I think also you're perfectly right. Sometimes we're really making things more complicated than they are. In the end, it's very much comparable to a vending machine that we also see here in Germany, like at every station, right? So where you can get a bar of chocolate or fresh drink, right? In the end, it's pretty similar. But keep in mind that the vending machines you see today, they're pretty much optimized for a certain type of product, right? Like chocolate bars, drinks, and it's every time the same, right? So you cannot say from one day to another, hey, during the previous times we were selling this kind of standardized bottles, and tomorrow we want to sell these newly packed cans or different types of beverages, right? Because the vending machine is very much standardized and not so much customizable. When you do this with a robot, and you can envision it's a robot that is kind of accessing surrounding racks that maybe contain totes, and inside of these totes you can place everything. You could today say it carries cell phones, and tomorrow it should be headphones or other type of electronics good. And the robot really gives you the flexibility to say, hey, we can change the items inside. And we have another robot that is picking outside of that tote. And this robot can use maybe different types of fingers, of end effectors to pick up these items. So customers can really say, hey, tomorrow or today I want to say electronics, and tomorrow I might change half of the stock into fashion, into apparel. And this really then also offers to enter this industry with different capabilities, right? So you could also think about players that just say, I operate these vending machines. Today my customer is an electronics company A, and tomorrow I might service another customer that is more in fashion retail. And I think that's the key difference, providing much more flexibility.
Okay, got it. And you said that we don't see it yet in our daily lives. And I remember meeting with one manager from Miele, very famous for their washing machines. And I asked him, okay, what is like the newest innovation in washing machines? And that now we have compartments in the washing machine where you can store like laundry detergent. Instead of like putting like laundry detergent like for every for every time you're like washing laundry, it can store it. And okay, that's not awesome. I mean, that it seems like a very boring thing. What annoys people most is like taking out the laundry, folding it together, iron it, whatever. So what is the solution there? And then he said to me, there are like initial tests like in Japan, for example, where you have like a laundry robot where you can put like the whole washing machine laundry output into that robot, and then the drying thing and folding thing and even sort it like for different family members is done. Where he said, such a machine might cost like even in a more advanced state 20, 30, 40K. And it's usually much cheaper for the people just to hire a person to do it. And totally made sense when I had this meeting like 5 years ago. But these days we are hearing more and more in every Western society, even like in Eastern society, there's not enough people anymore doing this easy jobs, I would say. Though there must be a market now where there's more robotic solutions, and we in our basement we have enough space. So I'm waiting for a solution for doing this. Do you see any advance in this area, or will we see hundreds of smart kiosks first before the first laundry robot will visit our basements?
Yeah, that's an exciting question. I think I totally agree with you, right? So that's something where you as a consumer are super excited, right? And right now, right, what we were discussing before is really the B2B business, right? So the robots, the solutions we are selling today with ABB Robotics is for businesses, right? So it's a clear B2B space. And the question you're asking is like, hey, when do we see service robotics really entering our homes? That I, as a consumer, can just say I order online a robot, right, for my daily use. And what we see today, right, an example here would be these vacuum cleaning robots, which are now advancing much more, right? Like if you look back at a vacuum cleaning robot, I don't know, 5-10 years ago, they had these very simple sonar sensors, right? So just ejecting sonar signals, getting those back, and then doing a fairly okay job. Today, these robots use the same type of sensor as we see with self-driving cars, like LiDAR sensors. So really using really precise laser sensors to drive around your home and doing a much better job, right? And I think this type of emergence we will see with different disciplines. To your question now, when do I have a robot that is kind of emptying my washing machine, taking out the clothes, putting them on a rack for drying, and then ironing that? These are many, many different tasks. And honestly speaking, I think it will still take a lot of time until we see this general robot doing a lot of the tasks you see in a current household, right? So what I would rather say is that we will see more service robot for more specific tasks, which could be like vacuum cleaning, in these type of domains. So yeah, I must say, unfortunately, I don't think that we will soon see this robot being capable of all these multiple different tasks. And it will be very interesting to see what type of tasks, of very scoped tasks, will be done by a robot in the future.
Do you own a vacuum cleaning robot?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. And I must say I'm not using it optimally. I'm just putting it into a room, close the room, and let it typically do 2, 3 rounds. So it's more like the concept of doing multiple cleans in order to get the result, and not so much mapping my home and optimizing my floor for the robot.
Yeah, so we also owned one once. It was called Roborock. I think it was a very good version already. I don't think if it had LiDAR on it. And we only wanted to use it like in at one floor. And as you said, you really need to adapt to the robot, not the other way around. It's very loud, so you cannot work when this kind of robot is cleaning. It's not smart at all. So even with the best sensors, there's obstacles which are unsolvable. But makes the robot look very stupid. Now I think we have wet cleaning vacuum robots, but it's like, let's say, there's like in 1 out of 50 use cases I could solve, like as a human, this robot might work. But the other 49, it needs my support. And this is like, we are far away from a perfect solution from my point of view, and especially when people with like cats and dogs talking about this kind of robot experience, it seems to be very kind of limited. But let's say vacuum robots are there already. So what is the next robot in the private household environment you would expect to enter the market or to be more adopted widely?
Wow, that's a very good question. I think we're right now really seeing a good emergence when it comes to drones. And these drones are typically used outside, and especially with advancements of very silent vehicle types like rotors to bring the drone to the air. I would say that there might be more and more use for internal applications. But what type of application? I think that's something super unknown yet. Similar with cleaning robots, right? I think first of all, you always have this enabling technology, and then you have a lot of smart minds who think like, hey, why don't we use a drone or this mobility to automate the vacuum floor cleaning? But I would say that probably from a consumer perspective, we see a lot of advancements in drones. And that's also where the market for consumer segments, right, for us, like the end consumers, the B2C environment, looks much different from the B2B, because in the B2B we have a lot of advancements when it comes to robots, right? We have collaborative robots, but I don't think that in 3 years everyone will have a collaborative robot at home to, I don't know, wash the dishes. I mean, for that we have an automated dishwasher.
Okay, then let's stay for one moment on the B2B segment, where you said there's like robots already in place. I don't know, in centers for elderly care, for example. So what kind of tasks are they able to do in such environments?
So when it comes to the service robot segments, we see rising need for not replacing the workforce, but really for helping the workforce and help them to focus on more important tasks. And a good example here is hospitals. In hospitals, you have typically super qualified and well-educated people with PhDs doing tasks like sorting drugs, bringing medicines to the patients, driving a lot of things around, right? These hospitals can be very large, especially in the US. You have hospitals where you have, I don't know, 10,000 employees. So very, very large facilities. And over there, of course, it makes a lot of sense to automate, let's say, the walking of a doctor, or to automate the sorting activities of a nurse, right? And for that, you can use a robot. And then you have a stationary robot that can be equipped with a camera, machine vision, and then picking up the drugs, scanning them, and placing them into different trays to automate the sorting. And by that, you might save 1 or 2 hours of a time of a doctor or of a nurse. That already makes a very great business case.
Oh, okay. So I will tell my wife then there's no a laundry robot this Christmas, and most likely not in the next 10 years. Then let's focus a little bit on the retail chain. So on the retail side, in our world, we have like different steps in the value chain, like production, delivery, wholesale, warehouses, and consumers, where all parts of this value chains are already screaming today. We don't have enough people. We need to do things differently, pay more. And one thing that occasionally comes up is obviously we have to automate things. And I think on the production side, we have seen robots in the car industry a lot, like welding things, for example. Is this already the case in other areas, like products we are seeing in the supermarket, where much more roboting power is already involved in the production process?
Yes, definitely. Especially when it comes to consumer packaged goods, right? And I mean, the term sounds a bit odd, but consumer packaged goods is really everything, like a cookie, sweets, bread, packaged bread. These made sandwiches, right? Or these prepared dishes with pre-cut food. And over there, of course, from the production to the packaging, this is fully automated. If you once have the chance to visit such a facility where they produce, let's say, chocolate bars, I think it's impressive, the quantity, the scale of how many bars they are producing actually per hour, right? It's huge. You would not be able to do that without automation. It's really comparable to the throughputs you see in the car industry. Of course, smaller items, so larger scale, but from a throughput perspective, very, very high. And over there, typically you have the production process, which does not necessarily involve so much robotics, but a lot of automation, right? Let's take the example of a bread, for example, right? So you bake the bread, and all this has very special types of automation and goods. It needs to do that. But then when it comes to the packaging, right? So like pick up the bread, put it into a tray, seal it with paper, put 3 breads into a larger package that ultimately will be sold to customers, put it into tertiary packaging so it is ready for being shipped. Take that packaging and put it on a pallet so you can build up larger quantities for shipment. All this already automated. For that, you would already need probably 2, 3, 4 different types of robots doing that job in very large production lines, and this is already happening today.
Yeah, and I remember a robot in my environment where the cousin of my wife, he owns a big farm. He has a milking robot for like 300 cows. It's a huge investment. It's like 2 million or so, creating such a robot. But then you don't have to. Then it's way more productive for the cows and for the farmer. Obviously, is that an area where ABB is involved too?
Not really yet. I think we have been looking into that as well. But not as a solutions builder, right? So I think we enable such market by providing the robots, right? So really the naked robot that then solutions builder can use. But this task is very, very delicate, right? So you would need machine vision. I mean, in the end, you're treating a living animal, right? So there's a lot of safety and security being involved. And ultimately, of course, it also needs to be hygienic, right? You're gathering what will be consumed later on by us, by the consumer. So there are a lot of regulations to consider. But typically we look at such markets, at such trends, because we want to be the enablers, right? So we want to make sure that we provide the robots for such applications.
And are you then involved into the logistics part of in the robot industry? Because you've talked about like lidars when it comes to self-driving capabilities of cars. I think this particular technology is not accepted by Tesla yet. I think they will include it in the future. But this self-driving car capability is usually is like the next step in the value chain. So when a product is produced and it's put on pallets and the truck is loaded, then you still need people now that are willing to drive from one location to another location in the middle of the night just to drop off the chocolate bars in the wholesale distribution center of a local supermarket chain, for example. And there, those self-driving capabilities are really demanded now because there are no drivers anymore. I think we saw this kind of peak driver demand in the UK, which is still the case. Where's the difference between like robotic capabilities and like self-driving capabilities? Is it more or less the same we are talking here?
I would say yes. In general, yes. I mean, let's start with a human, right? And honestly, that's super exciting. It's a super exciting field because what we see now happening during the past years with self-driving cars, but also with robots inside the warehouse, is that we begin to add human senses for robots. So we start to use vision to automate our human side to operate robots. So in the end, to do more precise manipulation, but also moving mobility, and that's something that self-driving cars do as much as self-driving robots. The important difference is, of course, that if you have a mobile robot inside a warehouse, you control the environment. So you know who will see the robot, who will work alongside the robot. You can instruct everyone. The weather inside a warehouse is every time the same, right? It has a roof, so the lighting conditions do not change, which makes it, of course, a lot simpler to have mobile robots, so self-driving cars, to some extent, inside the four walls. And this is something we already see today. This is already seeing huge scale. ABB recently acquired ASTI to also offer great solutions in that market. When it now comes to self-driving cars outside, you have a lot of uncertainty you add, right? Can snow, you might have a bird on the street, you might have a person crossing the street. So a lot of uncertainties which you cannot really influence, where you don't have any choice or any opportunity to instruct such people and say, hey, this is a self-driving car. If you see it, please wait until it passed, right? So these kind of things make it much more challenging for self-driving cars. And I think that's currently what we see with this industry. And that's also where we draw a clear line, right? So it makes a huge difference to develop robots that are self-driving inside the warehouse or inside the four walls compared to cars that can drive on public streets. However, the sensors, the vision, the logic behind is comparable. It's very similar.
Okay, then let's move into the store. So maybe let's start with the warehouse where this kind of big truck of chocolate arrived. You still need people with this kind of pallet moving machine that go into the truck and moving the pallet out there. But then a robot available, like moving this merchandise into the warehouse shelves?
Yeah. So this is something you can operate. I think what is important here to say is that typically we look at a human and say, hey, what are the human abilities, right? A human can walk and a human can manipulate with their hands. And that's something which robots cannot really do. A robot typically is very good at moving, just mobility, or picking, grasping, stationary manipulation. And I think that's something the industry currently gets their head around to really separate these tasks. So companies that are really leading in this automation space really manage to say, okay, this is for mobile robots, right? So what you're saying, moving pallets around and then putting them into storage, and this is for stationary robots. And to give a concrete example, what you can do, and we already see today, is that you have these pallets being automated, being unloaded from a truck, and then they are put into palletizing, depalletizing positions, and then you might have stationary robots picking up the pieces from these pallets to break them down and placing them into totes or into other mobile robots that then further process these boxes and singulate them and bring them to different positions. And that's something we offer as ABB. So this is something that already exists, that you can already solve today, where you can really automate 80-90% of your warehousing tasks.
Would you say that most of the warehouses that are constructed now have this kind of robotic capabilities in place, or do you see still a lot of warehouses that are built like the old way, where people have to move stuff?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think a mix. Currently, especially if you build larger scale warehouses, we see a lot of requests for this type of automation. because it just makes sense. And the scarcity of labor is a really big issue right now. However, when it comes to concepts that customers really want to realize in very short time, I think over there we still see a larger mix. So for the large facilities, yes, definitely 100%. Everyone is looking into automation and really wants to automate as much as he or she can. When it comes to smaller facilities, we already offer a big bandwidth of solutions, but I think the ambition over there is not yet to automate 100%, but still there are some bits that definitely it's going to be automated. So I think someone planning a warehouse today, not considering any automation, does not happen anymore. This is just not reality.
Okay, then let's move on to the delivery side of things. You might have seen there were a lot of like delivery innovation projects from DHL, UPS, FedEx, with the dream that in the future you won't need the postal people anymore that are bringing the box to your doorstep, but there might be like small moving robots around coming to you, and you could just pick the package from them. So I understand that's not an area where ABB is involved, but you obviously have a professional opinion on this development.
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting one, because we already see robots in that space for a decade right now, right? So quite a long time. And it didn't make it to a scale yet. And honestly, I think the reasons for that are very simple, and also show that sometimes the robotics industry is quite disconnected from this logistics industry. Because if you look into the volumes and let's say the work a typical postman is doing today, that's quite huge, right? So we see on average 200, 300 parcels per shift these postmen are delivering. And that's actually the main business of such logistics companies, right? It's simply economies of scale. So it would not be very efficient for such companies if the postman would just pick up one parcel, drive to a customer to deliver the parcel, go back to the sorting center or to the delivery center and pick up the next parcel, right? And this is pretty much how robots would do it, right? So you put one box into that robot then drives to a customer and then goes back. And there's not yet the business case behind that, also because these technologies are too expensive, and it really contradicts this consolidation strategy inside such logistics companies. What I think makes a lot of more sense, and where you can just probably introduce automation in the future, are these parcel lockers, for example, right? So you now as a customer have the opportunity to order something and just say, hey, I'm going to pick it up at the parcel locker. And this thing is available 24/7. So you can go there midnight to pick up your box, right? Amazon has it, DHL has it. A lot of different companies offer this type of technology. Think about such a parcel locker that could change location. Maybe not even yet self-driving, but think about a postman that is driving these parcel lockers, and it is in your quarter for, let's say, 3 hours. So you have a 3-hour window to pick up your box. It would reduce significantly the cost for delivery, and at the same time offer you a greater service, because you could choose the window when you pick up your parcel. And this is something you could already do today. And then if you think about it in the future, maybe 3, 4, 5 coming years, once the self-driving car technology is a bit more evolved, you could just make these parcel locker cars self-driving, and then you would have probably a more scalable business concept behind automated delivery. But a robot that is really going up your doorstep, knocking at your door and bringing you the parcel, I think that's something where we just don't have a great business case yet.
So what you're in general describing, if you're looking at the whole value chain of things, is in all the parts we have to adapt to the capability of robots, and not the robots have to adapt to our old behavior, which we were used to, like bending over things, doing things in a very complicated way. But if we streamline to the robot's capability in some areas, there's like already a high degree of automation. I think the milking robots needed a couple of decades to be accepted by every farmer, and still they're very expensive, very water intense in use. only makes sense for very big farms like 200 plus cows. But as there was no chance to train the cows, obviously the robot needed some more time to adapt, which is also the case like in the delivery and store logistics part. I totally get it. So it's like the short-term labor shortage we are seeing right now in many cases cannot be solved by robotic solutions. Do I get it right?
I mean, what you're describing right now is very robot centric, right? And I think that's a pitfall. We should not say that we cannot solve today's task. I think we should rather say there's a bandwidth of tasks, and some of it we can really optimize and substitute with robotics. And that's what we see already today. And we should also not forget about the advantages, right? So the scenario I was just sharing also provides much more flexibility to a customer. I mean, today, let's go back to the delivery example. Often you don't have a choice, right? So you get an email and it says like, hey, we're going to deliver your parcel within 1 hour. And you can just say, I'm not at home. And then it will say, maybe we try tomorrow. Can be, but can also be that this post guy decided to put it to the store next to your place. And this is something we can change today with robots, right? So they also give much more flexibility. What I was saying is that robots will likely not fully substitute a human, right? So our goal is not to say, hey, let's make a robot human and then we can solve all the different tasks. That's something that just doesn't make sense. So what we do is that we take parts that humans have, like the sensors for vision, an arm, right? We have robotic arms, the mobility to move between A and B. And then use these capabilities to a certain extent where it makes sense. And of course, this is something where we always need to make trade-offs. We might need to change processes, but ultimately, I don't think that we as a consumer will need to adapt. I think we as consumers will get much more flexibility and better services by seeing more robots. And of course, also for the people working in such segments, the focus is really also to reduce the heavy work, the dull and dirty works, the heavy lifting, all these things that you can automate.
How are you looking, like from an ABB perspective, towards the business models of this kind of automated warehouses, for example? Many manufacturers want to move their old business where it's all about like selling machinery or selling raw materials into a more service-oriented business model, which could mean instead of like selling me as a warehouse owner, as a robot, you can sell me robotic tasks. Okay, 1,000 times moving a pallet from left to right will cost you like XYZ euros, for example. So I don't need to own the robot anymore. You take care of the robot and the capabilities, and maybe even upgrade the robot. And out of a sudden, you're in the service business. So is it something you're looking into already, or where you are active already?
Yes, it's definitely something we're looking into. You also see a lot of emerging robotics companies really offering this type of commercial models that they often call robotics as a service, right? Like these RaaS models. And this is super interesting. And ultimately, it also really justifies the business case much easier, right? So if you're at the level where you can say, hey, this is the work the robot is doing, and this is the hourly savings you save, it's very clear for customers. And then also sometimes you really eliminate the need for these huge investments that then have to pay off within very short time. However, the industry, right, especially in logistics, is not very, let's say, engaged in such commercial models yet. So it's pretty much production capacity thinking, right? So you buy a machine, you sell it off, and then you begin to see return on your investment. But we see this is changing. And also what is interesting here is that with all these new players, right, for super fast deliveries, which do not yet use a large amount of automation, those will soon probably be pushed to use more automation and might be more interested in these RaaS models than into these capital expenditure commercial models, because they just want to get the service solved and they're willing to maybe pay a bit more, but then on a monthly or yearly basis. So that's definitely something. And maybe one last bit also on that one is that the innovation we see right now is much more happening on the software level and not so much on the hardware level, right? So software is really the enabler, and software is much easier to move and update, right? So also over here, there's more justification for a RaaS model because you can really simply update your hardware by using new software on a monthly or yearly basis, right? Like for example, with machine vision or other capabilities where humans would use the brain, and today we're using software.
Okay, speaking about software, how important is software in your customer acquisition process, especially like e-commerce software? I would say. So I assume this industry where you're in is like working the old ways. You know, customers know you. You know the customers. You know, like the big warehouse construction agencies where there's like an established business connection. So not so many people selecting robot capabilities yet on your website. Wrong or true?
I would say wrong. So we are really now looking also into these emerging markets, right? E-commerce, best example here. And there's also where you see very high adoption rates. So especially these new players, let's take large e-commerce companies in Germany. They really got their head around robotics and automation. So over there, we're really happy to engage with such customers to serve them. And then also you need to consider that the market has different channels, right? So often we talk to the end customer, like a large e-commerce player that really knows what they want. They have their own robotics team, but often you also have these integrators and partners that buy ABB robots, that are interested in our solutions, that are also looking into these new markets, right? Take your milking machine. This is something super specialized. So for that, it is likely that you have very specialized companies that might talk to ABB and say, hey, we need this type of robot. And we are then very happy to help them to also follow that trend. And they're then ultimately providing this very specialized solution. So there are different channels. And regarding the e-commerce abilities over there, I would say that we are really shifting the gears here, and inside ABB, especially inside the consumer segments and service robotics business, and inside ABB Robotics, we really are interested to engage with these new customers and target them.
Okay, and what are you looking forward in 2022? What is like the most exciting thing that might be see the light of the day? Which is not the laundry robot, I get it, but what might be the thing that might change our daily lives or yours?
Oh, that's a great question. I think what I'm really excited about is that we see more robots with human senses. And right now we're really ramping up our capabilities when it comes to vision. So you will really see more and more robots with human-like dexterity. So that can really manipulate their environments that are unstructured, cluttered sceneries, changing every day. And that, of course, doesn't change your life as a consumer. But what really changes your life as a consumer is that with now ABB being able to deploy mobile and stationary robots, you will see more and more combined fleets of stationary and mobile robots. And if you recall what I was saying about nearly 100% automated warehouse, this is now more and more possible. And I believe we will see more of these deployments and implementation throughout 2022, 2023. And ultimately, you as a consumer will be seeing much greater services, right? So you see these delivery windows are already shrinking, and you will see more of that. So you will probably experience that, within a year or two, you might be able to order something at 10 a.m. and you get it at 2 p.m. And that ultimately will be enabled also by robotics and automation.
That's nice. I'm going to look forward to this. After this recording, I will try to convince you in investing in this laundry robot. But Julian, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Alexander. Thanks for having me.